Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare. नाम संकीर्तन की जय, श्री प्रभुपाद की जय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। We are reading from Canto 11, Chapter 3, Text 37. Chapter is entitled Liberation from the Illusory Energy. सत्वं रजस्तम इति त्रिवृद् एकमादौ सूत्रं महानहमिति प्रवदन्ति जीवम् ज्ञानक्रियार्थफलरूपतयोरुशक्ति ब्रह्मैव भाति सदसत् चतयो परं यत् सत्वं रजस्तमेति त्रिवृड्येकमादौ सूत्रं महानहमिति प्रवदन्ति जीवम् ज्ञानक्रियार्थफलरूपतयोरुशक्ति ब्रह्मैव भाति सदसच्चतयो परं यत् सत्वं रजस्तम इति त्रिवृड्येकमादौ सूत्रं महानहमिति प्रवदन्ति जीवम् ज्ञानक्रियार्थफलरूपतयोरुशक्ति ब्रह्मैव भाति सदसच्चतयो परं यत् माताजी Word meaning, translation, purport by disciples of His Divine Grace is Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Disciples Speech. The purport is very long, so we'll read a couple of paragraphs. Sattvam, goodness, rajaha, passion, tamaha, and ignorance. Iti, thus known. Trivrit, threefold. Ekam, one. Adau, in the beginning, for creation. Sutram, the power to act. Mahan, the power of consciousness. Aham, and the false ego. Iti, thus, Pravadanti is called Jivam, false ego which covers the living entity. Jnana, the demigods as the embodiment of knowledge. Kriya, the senses. Artha, sense objects. Phala, and fruitive results such as happiness and distress. Rupataya, assuming the forms. Urushakti, possessing great varieties of energy. Brahmaiva, the Supreme alone. Bhati, is manifest. Sadasaccha, as both cross objects and their subtle causes. Tayo, both. Param, beyond. Yat, which is. Translation. Originally one, the absolute Brahman, comes to be known as threefold, manifesting itself as the three modes of material nature: passion, goodness, passion, and ignorance. Brahman further expands its potency, and thus the power to act and the power of consciousness becomes manifest, along with false ego, which covers the identity of the conditioned living being. Thus, by expansion of the multipotencies of the Absolute, the demigods as the embodiment of knowledge become manifest, along with material senses, their objects, and the results of material activity, namely happiness and distress. In this way, the manifestation of the material world takes place as a subtle cause and as the material effect visible in the appearance of gross material objects. Brahman, which is the source of all subtle and gross manifestations, is simultaneously transcendental to them, being absolute. Purport. In the previous verse, the sage Pippalayana described the absolute Brahman as being beyond the range of material sense perception and mental speculation. At the same time, it was stated, Atmamulam ardoktam aha yadrutena nisheda siddhi. The negative injunctions of the Vedic Vedas indirectly indicate the existence of the absolute truth. This absolute truth can be approached by correct means. Now in the present verse, it is clearly described that the absolute truth possesses innumerable potency. Urushakti Brahmaiva Bhati. Thus by the expansion of the absolute truth, the gross and subtle features of the material world become manifest. As stated by Srila Sridhar Swami, Karyam Karanat Vinnam na Bhavati. The result is not different from its cause. Therefore, since the Absolute is eternal existence, this material world, being the potency of the Absolute, must also be accepted as real, although the various manifestations of the material world are temporary and thus illusory. The material world should be understood to consist of the bewildering interactions of real elements. The material world is not false in the imaginary sense of the Buddhists and Mayavadis, who state that in fact the material world does not exist outside the mind of the observer. The material world as the potency of the Absolute has real existence, but the living entity becomes bewildered by the temporary manifestations, foolishly taking them to be permanent. Thus the material world functions as an illusory potency, causing the living entity to forget the spiritual world, wherein life is eternal, full of bliss and knowledge. Because the material world thus bewilders the conditioned soul, it's called illusory. When a magician performs his tricks on stage, that which the audience apparently sees is an illusion. But the magician actually exists, and the hat and rabbit exist, although the appearance of a rabbit coming out of a hat is an illusion. Similarly, when the living entity identifies himself as part and parcel of the material world, thinking I'm American, I'm Indian, I'm Russian, I'm black, I'm white, he is bewildered by the magic of the Lord's illusory potency. The conditioned soul must come to understand I'm a pure spirit soul, part and parcel of Krishna. Now let me stop my useless activities and serve Krishna since I am part of him. Then he is free from the illusion of Maya. Upon artificially tries to escape the clutches of material energy, of the illusory energy, by declaring that there is no illusory potency and this world is false, he merely falls into another illusion created by Maya to keep him in ignorance. Krishna states in Bhagavad Gita, Daivi Yasha Gunamayi Mamaya Duratya Mamyeva Ye Prapadanti Mayam Yetam Tarandite. Unless one surrenders at the lotus feet of Mayesha, the Lord of the illusory potency, there is no possibility of escaping from illusion. Childishly declaring that there is no illusory potency is useless, since Maya is Dhuratyaya or unsurpassable for the living entity. But Lord Krishna, the omnipotent personality of Godhead, can immediately call off the illusory potency. So we'll stop here. Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnana-shalakaya Chakshara-militam Yena Tasmai Shri-Gurave Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadameham Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Sri Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavanscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tvam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Sri Krishna Kamitanscha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravari Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gauratvase Namaha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpati Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Nilachala Nivasaya Nityaya Paramatmane Balabhadra Subhadrabhyam Jagannadaya Te Namaha Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So in this purport, with this translation and this purport, it is being explained that how this material world, it is how, especially in the translation, it is explained that how the Brahman, absolute Brahman, it undergoes various transformations. The absolute Brahman naturally it does not lose its original potency, but the various transformations happen by which the whole material world gets manifest. It's in great detail explained in 2nd canto and 3rd canto that how this Mahatattva it turns into Pradhan on the application of time. The whole thing happens on the application of time actually. It initially starts with Mahavishnu's glance. Mahavishnu's glance is also called as Kala. So in one purport in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Prabhupada explains that this Kala is non-different from Shambhu. So Mahavishnu's glance, the personification of Mahavishnu's glance is Shambhu. So when that is applied on Prakriti, So then the transformation starts happening. So Brahman gets transformed to Mahatattva, Mahatattva gets transformed to Pradhan, Pradhan gets transformed to on the application of 3 modes and on the application of Kala, it gets transformed into false ego and eventually the different sense devatas and all the material elements and all these things manifest over a period of time. So that is being explained in the translation. The noteworthy thing, however, is that as it is explained that the Brahman itself or the Supreme Absolute Truth himself, they don't lose their original spiritual nature. So Krishna, when he comes to this material world, he apparently takes part in activities which seem to be material from an external perspective. Therefore, the commentators for all time to come, they say that Krishna is a politician, Krishna is a warrior, Krishna is a Kshatriya or a Vaishya, or he is a moralist, or he is a great philosopher who has spoken Bhagavad Gita. So in this way, different opinions are put forward. But of course, Krishna is playing the role, all these roles, what they have been saying, Krishna had played those roles. He was a Kshatriya, he played the role of a Kshatriya, he played the role of being a cowherd boy, he played the role of being a great philosopher, he played the role of being a chivalrous fighter, and many other roles he had played as a politician. So no doubt, in that sense it is true. But Krishna is Supreme Personality of Godhead himself, and he hasn't lost his potency as the Supreme Personality of Godhead despite playing all these roles. Unlike material jivas, when they come to the material world and they display their activities or they work under the modes of material nature, they unless and until there is a strong interaction with spiritual nature, there is a great chance that the insignificant conditioned living entities, they come under the modes of material nature. So being under the modes of material nature, they become bewildered. But Krishna is not like that, and pure devotees are also not like that, because they are in direct touch with us, direct touch with the internal potency. In this sloka, in this purport, it is explained. Daivihesha gunamayi mamo maya duratya mam ye vaye prapadyante mayam yatam tarante. So the material nature is very difficult to overcome, but one who has taken shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead can easily go cross beyond the material modes of nature. So that is explained. So the pure devotees as well, because they are in touch with the internal potency of the Lord, they cross over this matter. The sadhakas, they try to, but sometimes they become successful, sometimes they become a failure. It is explained that how a conditioned soul, it acts upon its false ego. There is an example given, just like a Jai Sri Srinitaya Gauranga ki, Jai Srila Prabhupada ki. It is explained that an example is given of a bullock cart. A bullock is tied, the nostrils of bullock are tied. So when bullock is moving moving straight, so the person who is riding the bullock cart, he pulls the knot, he pulls the rope which is tied to the right nostril if he wants to go right. So the bullock immediately thinks, by my own free will, I am going towards right direction, and then it goes in right side. Then after some time, the person who is riding the bullock cart, he pulls left string. So the bullock, it thinks that by my own free will, I am going towards left direction, and then it goes left. And then he doesn't do anything. So the bullock keeps moving ahead. And the bullock thinks that by my own free will I am going straight. So like that. So similarly, we also sometimes we tend to think that, oh, this is Krishna's will. By my own free will I am following Krishna's will. And then we do it. While we are being played by material modes of nature. So very unfortunate. So the Maya Devi, it pulls the string of mode of passion. And we think that by my own free will, I am following Krishna's direction. And then we go towards the direction in which the Maya's mode of passion is being pulled. Or Maya Devi pulls the mode of goodness rope. And we think by my own free will I am following Krishna's direction in Krishna's will in this direction, and we go in that direction. So this is natural for a conditioned living entity. So because this material world, material enjoyment, one another point which is explained in detail in this purport is that how this material world, it is illusion. Material enjoyment is illusion. Now this is a paradoxical statement. For Mayavadis, they think that if we tell them that, they think that material world itself is illusion. That means if, let us say this building is there, according to their understanding, this building is not there only. So can you imagine? So it's very difficult to understand, conceive, how can someone think when something is not there, when something is there, this glass is there, they say that this glass is not there only. It's very difficult to understand, then how this philosophy works. For them, that some object is there, they say that it is not there only. So that is one problem. But sadhakas, they think that material happiness is illusory, which is philosophical. Which is what is philosophy, or philosophy says that material happiness is illusory, and we are trying to do sadhana in order to understand that material happiness is illusory. But even that is paradoxical in the sense that because the sadhakas, they are so much stooped under the material modes of nature. If somebody say, for example, if we are offered a nice gulab jamun in a bowl, and then we are offered to eat it, and then when we are eating it, somebody says this happiness is illusory. It's very difficult to understand that how this happiness is illusory. It gives us such a nice sweet experience, and you are saying this happiness is illusory. So it's very difficult to understand. Because that is the nature of material happiness. Material happiness. So the scriptures say that it is illusory. We can understand. We have heard it, having heard it from many years. At least we have that theoretical understanding that material happiness is illusory. Now, why is it illusory? There are several reasons. Because when we experience material object, it gives happiness. There is happiness in material object. There is happiness in enjoying matter. So then there is some happiness for sure. So then how do scriptures say that it is illusory? Why is it illusory? If we say that there is no happiness, for example, we are tasting gulab jamun. So if we say there is no happiness only, we can say that, because there is some happiness. So then what? Then the experience is contradicting scriptures. So is it true? Why is it called illusory? There are three reasons why it is called illusory. First and foremost reason is that the happiness is insignificant. It is tuchya. It is very insignificant. There are two characteristics of material happiness. It is a temporary and illusory. We are focusing on illusory nature. We are not focusing on temporary nature. Because temporary nature, at least we have some understanding. But illusory nature, it's very difficult to understand. So we will focus only on it being illusory. So why is it called as illusory? The first reason is because it is insignificant. The happiness which is derived out of matter is insignificant. And not only it is insignificant, but also the happiness is, that much happiness is offered which robs us away of unlimited happiness. It is explained that the material happiness which we get in this Dharatal, in this earthly planet, is say X. The happiness which we get in Swargaloka is thousands of times X, 1000X. The happiness which we get in Janaloka or Tapaloka progressively gets multiplied by 1000 times. Say there are 7 layers, 7 planetary systems. So each time 1000 into 1000 into 1000 into 1000, that means 10 power 3 into 7 into 10 power 3 into 10 power 3 into 10 power 3 into 10 power 3. So 3 into 7 is 21. So 10 power 21 times happiness, which one experiences in this material world, in this Dharatala, in this earthly planet. And this is about Brahmaloka. And the happiness which is derived in Brahman, it is said it is unlimited times in comparison to happiness which is experienced in material world. What to speak of Vaikuntha? There is no comparison made. What to speak of Golaka? No comparison whatsoever. Because it unlimited to the power of unlimited is unlimited. Infinite to the power of infinite is infinite. So all this happiness is robbed away by a tiny speck of matter. Tiny speck of matter, tiny speck of material enjoyment. And we hear several examples. We hear the example. One time one sannyasi was speaking that the devotees they went on a Harinam Sankirtan, and it was a sunny day, and they were going on Harinam Sankirtan. Many devotees, about 100 devotees were there, and they were dancing and singing. With great joy they were going, but it was a sunny day, it was afternoon, 4 o'clock or something like that. The sun was hot, it's somewhere in Italy or something like that. So they were dancing and sweating, and they went for a long distance. And they were walking, and finally, and they were sweating and exhausted, and they were not able to understand what to do, and they were thinking it will be nice if we can have a shower. So, and when they were thinking like that, they came across a lake with pure crystal clear water. It's so exciting. And the Kirtaniyas who were doing Kirtan, they increased the volume of Kirtan, and it went to a crescendo. With the happiness, with the excitement of taking bath in the lake. The lake is so exciting, and the water in the lake is so exciting, and the Kirtan went to a crescendo. They thought that now this is the last pinnacle of excitement in Kirtan. After that, our exhaustion will get completely finished up, we'll have a great relief. And they did an wonderful Kirtan, but the devotees could not stop themselves. Even when the Kirtan is on, they started running towards the lake. So anyway, the Kirtaniya himself probably might have got exhausted. He stopped with the Kirtan and he also ran towards the lake. So then immediately they took off their clothes and they jumped into the lake. So as and when they jumped into the lake, so innumerable devotees jumped into the lake. And it's cool, placid water, and they were it appeared that, they were so relieved from all the exhaustion. But then, one devotee was stung by a jellyfish. So he started screaming. It was the sting is very painful. We don't have a habit of, at least I never got stung by jellyfishes in India. So I do not know. The whole childhood I stayed near ocean. Ocean was only 3 kilometers from my home. So we used to go to ocean very frequently, once in a month or so. And we used to take bath, but we never got stung by anything, fortunately. But then these devotees, they jumped into the lake and they were all taking bath, and the jellyfishes were biting, but they were so exhausted. They thought that, probably, if I stand here, the jellyfish will bite. If I go little far, the jellyfish will not bite. So they came out and went to that place. But then the whole lake was infested with jellyfishes. Not one jellyfish, you go and deep inside, multiple jellyfishes were biting. One jellyfish here, one jellyfish, one here, one here, one here, tens of jellyfishes at one time. So those devotees who were intelligent, they understood that jellyfish, you can't avoid jellyfishes no matter whichever angle you go through. You go through this angle, that angle, that angle. You go all around the lake, walk for 0.5 kilometers, 1 kilometer and go from that direction. Everywhere jellyfishes are there. So those devotees who were intelligent, they understood, they came out and they sat down and chanted Hare Krishna. But those devotees who thought that, we'll explore different angles of the lake, they ended up their body becoming red, like, what do we say, red hot charcoal, something like that, it became reddish in color. So the happiness of waters of lake it is there, it's not that it is not there. But the pain of jellyfishes far overwhelms the happiness of the waters of lake. So it is explained that there is some happiness, some insignificant happiness in this matter. It's not that it is not there. It is just that much so that we do not want to take to spiritual enjoyment. The happiness is that much so that it keeps us covered and it gives us the conviction to not take to spiritual service. So that much happiness is there in material enjoyment. So that is one reason. The second reason is more dangerous. It makes us attached. It is, if you see social media, someone someone has a habit of going through reels or shorts or something like that. A reel is of how much time? 30 milliseconds? 40 seconds? Maybe if it is too long, it's 1 minute. So if someone thinks that I'll see 1 or 2 reels, so it takes how much time? 1-2 minutes, hopefully. But there is a problem. Do you know the problem? The algorithm of these reels and shorts is made in such a way that the person becomes addicted to it. That is the problem. So it understands the nature of the mind, and the algorithm is written in such a way that the person becomes addicted to it. So what starts with 1 reel doesn't end with 1 second, 1 minute. What's supposed to be 1 minute, it doesn't end with 1 minute. It goes for hours together. And reels keep coming. There is no end to it. They have a technical term, I'm forgetting it. It says that, the term says that it is unlimited browsing. The word means. So social media is our happiness, material. I'm giving this example in order to explain material world, material happiness. Right? Shastras give an example, apt example. If we add fuel to fire, and we think little sense gratification. What the problem is? What problem is there with it? The problem is it doesn't stop with little. Especially sadhakas, they think that some sense gratification is required in order to continue Krishna consciousness, right? There is a tendency for sadhakas to think, अरे जीना तो है, शरीर तो भगवान ने दिया, मन ने दिया, भगवान ने मन भी दिया, भगवान ने पॉलिसी को दिया, क्या करे? थोड़ा तो आनंद चाहिए, थोड़ा तो सुख चाहिए, कृष्णा is because of my karma, I have got this body, I have got this mind, I have got this intelligence, I have got this false ego. So we need some material happiness in order to exist. So this is called as pre-samples. Maya Devi, it gives pre-samples. Like this social media, it gives some pre-samples so that the person becomes addicted to social media. So similarly, Maya Devi gives pre-samples. An example is given that if you put a bait for a fish, when a bait is offered for a fish, the fish, and there are many fishes moving around, and some fishes are sadhu fishes. They understand that there is a bait, so they don't go near it. And some fishes are like us, They think that there is such a nice, wonderful eatable which is there, such a nice sense object which is there, and I am hungry. भगवान ने पेट दिया, किस लिए दिया? भूखा है, खाने के लिए कुछ चाहिए, और दिया हुआ इतना आसानी से मिल रहा है. Why should I endeavor so much? So and then the sadhaka fish, it goes, like all of us, it goes, and the sadhu fishes, they say, this is not eatable, it's a bait. You don't understand. I will only touch the bait. I am not going to gulp it. So sadhaka fish thinks like that. We were discussing, right? The nostril, the bullock, the driver, he is pulling in right direction. And the bullock is thinking, by my own free will, I am following Krishna's will to go in right direction. So like that, the sadhaka fish is thinking, I will just touch the bait and then go ahead. And then it catches the bait. No, I don't know the mechanism. I only heard this example, how the whole thing is organized, the bait and the fish and all that, it is organized. We should ask some machwara, some fishermen, In our winter park, sometimes they go in front of the pukur, we see some fishermen, not fishermen, I'm sorry, some people, well off, rich people, they bring a fishing rod and they fish. You saw that? And some of you might have seen that. Nowadays this is, earlier it was not prevalent. Nowadays I am seeing it. Sometimes we get to see it. So anyway, so point I'm trying to say is that I don't know the mechanism. But I heard that, it is done in a way that the fish, if it keeps the bait in the mouth, the fisherman does not do anything. He waits. So Maya Devi gives free samples. अच्छा, एक थोड़ा सा सैंपल ले लो. तो हम सोचते हैं छोटा सा सैंपल, उसको लेने में क्या प्रॉब्लम है, थोड़ा ले ही लेते हैं. And then Maya Devi thinks, very nice. You have taken the pre-sample. Very nice. Good opportunity. And then the bait goes inside. Hook goes inside. It goes till the throat. And then we think it has gone only to the throat. What is the problem? So there is no problem. And then it goes till the intestines. The hook goes till the intestines. And by the time it goes till the intestines, it's very late. The fish is already completely entangled. Because the sadhaka fish has not heard the instructions of sadhu fishes. So it will come out of the ocean of devotion very soon. So what starts with little does not end up little. It ends up in a big way. So this is the second problem. First problem is the happiness is insignificant. Second problem is the happiness is, it makes us, it makes us attached and brings us down and down. And we also hear the example of adding fuel to the fire. Shastra they speak about if you add little fuel, the blaze keeps increasing. The little you keep adding, the blaze keeps increasing to the effect, after some time it will overangle the whole place. It's like that. Vedic scriptures they give this example. So this is the second problem. And third problem is it has a heavy reaction. So we may not be able to see the reaction, but it will become manifest. Sometimes it becomes manifest immediately also. Especially for devotees, they are very fortunate, unfortunate, whatever you call it as. Say they do some sense gratification, it becomes manifest very fast. It doesn't require much time. Turant Bhagavan de ठीक बेटा ले लो. You want to enjoy some matter, take this reaction. So devotees understand, okay. Devotees, we are intelligent, we understand that because I have attempted to enjoy matter, very soon I am getting the result, reaction. So these are some of the reasons. Of course, there are many other reasons. These are some of the reasons which I am able to connect to immediately. Because of which the material happiness, which is illusory. So despite hearing all these reasons, the reality is that we don't understand that it is illusory. Unless and until we take to Krishna consciousness, the only way by which we can understand the material happiness to be illusory is by getting a higher taste. Param dushtva nivartate. So Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, he says two things. He says that a person can't take to Krishna consciousness unless and until he understands this material world is a place of illusion. So Krishna says that in Bhagavad Gita. Krishna also says in Bhagavad Gita that a person can't understand this material world to be illusion unless and until he takes to Krishna consciousness. Seemingly contradictory. So what should be done first? We should understand that this material world is illusion and take to Krishna consciousness, or we should take to Krishna consciousness and then by the strength of Krishna's mercy we understand this material world to be illusion. The answer is both, naturally. Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur writes a commentary on Bhagavad Gita for this verse when it is explained that how one takes to Krishna consciousness, then one understands this material world to be illusion. So Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur says that earlier it is explained that that unless and until one understands that this material world is illusion, one cannot take to Krishna consciousness. Then how this particular understanding is given here? So Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur gives an example that imagine a small child. He tries to understand, he tries to clean himself after passing stool. This is what I heard. This is the example which is given, it seems. He tries to clean himself after passing stool. That is how a conditioned living entity thinks that I will understand how this material world to be illusion. So he goes and he tries to clean himself, and in the process of cleaning himself, he applies tool here and there. So then he understands precarious situation that I am not cleaning myself, I am making myself more dirty. So then he starts crying for the mother Radharani. So then when he cries for mother's mercy, then mother will come and clean the child. So when Vishnu Chakravarti gives this example, that how bhakti is important, and by getting a higher taste, we can understand this material world to be illusion. Having said this, it's also important that one of the aspects of devotional service is to avoid sense gratification. To say no to sense gratification is one of the aspects of devotional service. So Artha Pravritti is very important, along with it goes Ananta Nivritti. Surely practice of devotional service is most important. Along with it, one also has to say no to sense gratification and should not foolishly say yes to Maya, thinking that it is required. Hare Krishna. So are there any questions or comments? If we have 1 or 2 minutes, we'll just take it. Thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
नहीं हो जाएंगे तब तक हम लोग स्टार्ट भी नहीं कर सकते हैं। इसमें नहीं बात क्या मतलब
Therefore I was saying about Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur's commentary. Bhagavad Gita में से बताएगा. Till the time we are frustrated with material enjoyment, we can't. Unless and until we give up sin. What is that shloka? Not remembering that shloka. Unless and until we are completely free of sin, we can't take the devotional service. Yeah, there is one shloka, I'm not able to collect. So in that connection only Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur speaks about this particular verse. Yes, it's true. But how do you come out of the sin? You come out of the sin by taking the Krishna consciousness. Daivehesha gunamai namamaya mamyevaye tattvatyam maya. So even to come out of the sin, we need Krishna's mercy.